Yeah, it's that coming up from the bottom. Day one, $0 type shit. The only thing I'm ducking is the graveyard. Really with the shit y'all niggas play hard. I made it to a boss, I'm selling 8 balls. I came up from nothing, I could never take a day off. The only thing I'm ducking is the graveyard. Really with the shit y'all niggas play hard. I made it to a boss, I'm selling 8 balls. I came up from nothing, I could never take a day off. Turn your baby mama crib into a stash spot. And we moving more aggressive than the last shot. Hieroglyphics in black.
That's that gangster song we always play.
That's right. I like it.
Super fun one today, man. How are you, Eli? Eli, I already know how you are. I'm stressing
great.
you out. We're pushing in business, and because you're the big old brain behind all of it, you're pressed today. And I love it, man. I love seeing you pressed.
It's barely 11 a.m. and we've had 2 closings, a couple fires extinguished, some clients' needs satisfied, and good
Credit
to go,
to you.
man. And podcast set up, and we're rolling.
Hey, you're the real hero.
No.
Oh, you are. There's a little bit of facetiousness in there.
Yeah, no shit.
You're crushing, man. It's Friday. We love getting to Fridays and getting a podcast. We had a great one last week with Shea Hildebrand. Super good dude. We'll be talking more about him lately. But we've got a super fun one today. I'm a little partial to this because, I follow this guy a lot. He's in the same network we are as far as real estate. And personally, I feel like he's just doing it the right way. We see a lot of people in real estate. We even see a lot of people within our own company that we're at where, like, man, I disagree with their tactics. I disagree with how they're going about it. And, when we get to agent attraction, I absolutely love it. But I'm a little partial, and it could be to my own limitations. I'm a little partial to, man, if you're not good at the practitionership and you're just out there attracting agents for the sake of attracting agents, but you've got an empty well and nothing to teach them exactly on how to get better, at their craft, man, I question it. But it's a quiet question because it's also not my lane. But the guy we got on today, Jay Kinder, super good dude. Minus, I think, being a Dallas fan. I know we all have things that just aren't the best about us that we have to own and be honest about. Like for me, my fallback is that I think I work too hard. Isn't that cliche statement?
You think you do, or other people think you do?
I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, exactly.
But Jay Kinder is in our upline over here at EXP. Man, I think they've got 10,000 people in their network. But outside of that, these guys absolutely crush real estate, doing 500-600 deals a year. I could be even lowballing that, but they did a great job at the practitionership, and they came from a background of the volume built a brand, not the other way around, right? And I'm so partial to that, man, because whether it was special operations in the Marine Corps or whatever it may be, it was like your ability to be a practitioner is what allowed us to go do high-speed shit, because high-speed shit was literally just being brilliant at the basics, regardless of scenario, beyond rapport. And Jay Kinder, Michael Reese do a great job with that. It's also very reminiscent of you and I doing some things together. But without further ado, Jay, minus the cowboy helmets. I appreciate you still throwing them up there. I know the next time we see each other at an event, I bet you hit me one.
You usually got to hide these things, you know what I'm saying?
No, man. And it's, I'm a Yankee fan with baseball, right? Grandpa was a Yankee fan, and it's passed on. But I feel your pain because there's so much expectation on that organization, and then there's so much shade people throw to Dallas fans. But you stand strong and you're kicking ass anyway. But no, man, we're super appreciative to have you on here. And man, just a little bit. Tell us, kind of how we run the show is like, let's jump right into it. Obviously, you're in real estate. You're at EXP. You're in our upline and crushing. But let's rewind a little bit. Let's talk about, your literal day $1 as in what were you doing prior to real estate? And then when you first jumped into it and it was your literal day $1, how did it start? How did it go about? And then what led you to where you're at now?
Yeah, man, that's a fun story, man. I was mowing my dad's rental properties and right out of high school, and these aren't just like normal yards that got mowed. These are the ones that when people moved out, they had been mowing the yard for 6 months. So I got all the shit work basically, and clean outs and stuff like that. The stuff that you could pay a kid like me to do because I'd fuck just about anything else up. But
right.
I remember going in one day, I was getting paid, and my dad wasn't really ever in sales. He was he had a property management company, and so he actually bought a Cole Baker franchise the year I graduated, and so I never he wasn't like out showing houses and going on listing appointments and stuff like that. Like at least I don't remember that as a kid. So I didn't really know that much about the sales and the commissions and all that. And I went in one day and this this little dude was getting paid. Like I was waiting for my check. It was like $400. And this guy got a check and my dad wrote the check and handed it to him. It was like $5,300 or something like that. And I was like, what the hell did he do today? Like, I mean, shoot, I'm out here sweating my ass off and mowing yards and doing all this stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know what he did, but I'm pretty sure I can do it. And he said, well, he just sold this one house over in such and such. Hey, there's one house and he got paid that much. I was like, well, maybe I should look into this real estate thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it was just kind of opportunity. I was like, I mean, I was going to college. I had no vision. You know, I felt like the class I was taking wasn't helping me with anything that I was excited about. And so I went ahead and, learned a little bit about the class. My dad, showed me what I had to do to take the class, flunked a couple times and finally passed it. And before I knew it, I was just turning 19 and I was licensed to sell houses.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
I feel like all the hitters, we failed our tests, at least once.
Right.
We had a buddy on who I think took it like 7 times. Our buddy Alex Chapman crushed his 250 million in volume and soon to be EXP. He doesn't know that. He'll be over here. So you get into the game, man. You're jumping in, and like, did you go obviously to a traditional real estate brand? What did that look like when you were first grinding? And obviously, I know I'm forecasting a bit, but you grew a team, you crushed that. What did that look like as far as getting started? What was working? What was not working when you first got into the game?
Well, nothing worked right out of the gate. I mean, I remember my dad telling me this, and it's not, and I remember a lot of brokers used to say this for years. They're like, well, you need to be prepared to not make anything for 6 months. I'm like, well, that's not how I operate. So we'll make some money before that. But I didn't know what I didn't know. What I really didn't realize was that, how to get customers, right? I think that's like the first thing you figure out. Like it's different if you get into real estate and you have a sphere of influence. All my sphere of influence was still doing keg stands in college. Right. So like I didn't have that. And so I had to figure out, well, how the hell do you find people that want to buy and sell real estate? And so, it was open houses every Sunday for years. I was consistent, and if I didn't have a listing in the beginning, I was holding somebody else's open house. Like I was just out there doing something, trying to find people that wanted to buy or sell. And, what really saved me was going to different classes and stuff. Like back then they used to fax the broker stuff that, hey, there's an event coming up over here in Norman you can go to or whatever. And I remember this guy came in and it was a Dale Carnegie sales rep. And my dad had apparently gone through Dale Carnegie before. And so he's like, you got anybody for me? His name was Bob Farrell was the guy's name. And my dad said, you want to do it? I said, well, what is it? He said, it's really good. And I was like, I was 18, 19 years old, I guess at the time. And so I was like, yeah, I guess I'll do it. And I did it. And it really helped me with just my ability to do things that scare me. You know what I'm saying? Like speaking in front of people, things like that. I wasn't, I was kind of a class clown, but I didn't want to speak in front of people publicly and stuff like that. And so some of the things they make you do in that class, man, you got to grow a little bit. And so that was helpful. A lot of some sales skills and things that were picked up there. And what I learned from that was that, man, there's some knowledge out there that I don't have. And if it's in alignment with what I'm trying to do, I should probably try to get in that room, And so, I started doing those things. And there's one course I remember that it was in Norman, Oklahoma. I drove to Norman and this guy had, this guy's name was Roger Butcher, and he had created this thing called like a 30-day marketing plan. And I was like, man, that sounds good. Like that's something of value that I'm doing. I have a plan to help sell their home, that kind of thing. And then he started telling me about for sale by owners. And he told me like, I didn't know, this is how dumb I was. I didn't even know that. Well, I didn't know what a for sale by owner was. I was like, what is, so people actually put signs in their yard and they don't have an agent, but they want to sell their house and agents don't call them. Like, I couldn't believe that. To me, that was like, what? So I remember I called my dad. I said, why didn't you tell me about these for sale by owners? I said, this is crazy. I said, I'm driving around on my lunch break at this class calling for sale by owners in Norman, Oklahoma, trying to get referrals to other agents because they're so lazy they don't call them. And that didn't work, by the way. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But that was, my foray into real estate was, you gotta, you don't eat if you don't kill something. So you better figure out a way to get a customer. I probably did 9 things that didn't work. And then every once in a while, one thing would. And so that would just give me enough hope to go to the next route, how to get customers.
Right. And it's interesting when you say those kind of things, man, because you had to do the work. And talking about being consistent, and you had some guys speaking that were pointing you in the right direction and giving you some how-tos, but you had to do the work. And that's the one scarcity sometimes within real estate, man, is like people don't want to do the work. And there's this hard part because, from me, like I built a fitness company with my buddy. We built 14 franchises in 2.5 years and crushed it. And I was after law enforcement. I jump into real estate, and I sold all my stuff, and I was living in a pantry, my buddy's mom's old Y2K pantry, bro, with Fig Newtons and distilled water and just getting after it. But I had a work ethic from the Marine Corps to certain things. Like I had a work ethic and the how-tos, the pointers that would, come my way. I was putting the work in, and the amount of content and, and courses and different things that Elon and I have built over time, whether it was producing for our our team when we were at Berkshire or what we're doing with our network now at EXP, man, it's like you want to give your kiddos everything you didn't have. But part of why you have everything you have is because you had nothing to get it done with, and like you had to create this over time, and then you start giving them those tools or those whatever, but it's absent the grit. It's absent like the sweat equity it takes to get there. And we were talking with Alex about that, on one of the podcasts prior, and it's like you have to ride that balance. And it's almost like as you're getting more agents around, the one thing that makes me okay with that versus just like loving on them so much you want to do the work for them is it's a filter, because the people that start doing the work, they start separating themselves from the pack. And then as a leader, you start figuring out where your time and energy goes a little bit more than the others, and then where the others can just get you on a Zoom call where everyone else is already. But the one-on-one time or the one-on-three time, like it's got to be reserved for people that start separating themselves, and like still going back to your story, let's kind of jump ahead a little bit as far as like still in traditional brokerage, whatever it may be, but like what happened over the course of several years? What were you doing different to start separating yourself from the pack a little bit and really start to create a name for yourself, a brand for yourself, and some progress?
Yeah, man. So there was a distinct moment that I recognized that everything was going to be different. It had all been hustle and in the beginning, and I just would outwork them. I mean, that was just, I didn't have a whole lot else to work with. So, I would try harder and the feedback I would always get was like, I was enthusiastic, right? Like I had a belief that I could do it. I had a belief I could help people. I liked people. So I didn't mind, talking to people, calling people, going to, knocking a door. And none of that stuff really bothered me. And so, I didn't like losing. And I hate to lose. And so the thing that drove me early on was part of what drove me early on anyways, was there was a scoreboard in my dad's office. And this one dude named Tom King was always number one. He talked more shit than anybody I've ever worked with. And I just wanted to kick his ass. Like I didn't care if I made any money at all. I wanted more stars on the board than Tom King. And so that drove me every day I walked in that office. If I was climbing up that board, I knew one day I was going to be, and he was a Redskins fan too. So that didn't help, but
fuck that guy.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so weird things like that just being competitive. I don't know where that's born, inside of you, but it was inside of me. And I hated losing. And I learned so much. Like I'd go on these appointments and I would, I'm FSBOs and expires. Like early on, that was a big chunk of my business. Like that's what really, it was the foundation. And it's funny, like when you all the people that I've coached and trained that are doing 500, 1,000, 800 deals. I mean, like all these people, like all across the country, I know I've looked under the hood of most of their businesses. A lot of them came to me doing 30 or 40 deals a year. We coached them up to this high levels. And I mean, 100%, not 99%, 100% of them all called FSBOs and expireds. Like they did that work. And so, you just learn how you just get beat up doing it, right? Like you're either going to figure out what to say, what not to say, when to shut up, how to close for the appointment. You're going to either figure that out or you're going to get out of real estate because you're just going to hate it. Right. And so like, once you realize, man, this is an easy, no cost, there's no cost associated with generating those opportunities. When you get a listing, you might sell it. a buyer, you might represent the buyer. So it can create a lot of revenue for you. And now you can start to look at where you want to invest money into marketing. Right. And so that's what happened for me. That was the transition for me. And, I didn't know what I didn't know. You spend a lot of money on things that don't work, and everybody's trying to sell you something in real estate. And so I had to learn marketing, but I was doing a full page ad in the newspaper and I did a billboard at the same time, I want to say. And then shortly after that, I bought some guy. I was the easiest sell in the whole marketplace, man. Once they saw I was selling some houses, man, everybody was coming in my office trying to sell me something. So guys came in and sold me radio. And I remember I was on an appointment. I came back to the office and it was probably a month or two into some of the advertising stuff that I'd signed up for, which was scary. It was scary because it was more money than I was really comfortable spending, but I had to try something to get to the next level. And I had two messages when I came back into the office, and it was people that wanted to list their house with me. And I was like, these were strangers, people I didn't know. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, something. I'm on to something now. And that was a moment for me where I realized, man, when you understand marketing and how to build your brand and how to attract business, versus chasing, then, not that you're going to stop chasing it, because that was an oil well, right? Like you have to do both, a little bit of both to get both those oil wells pumping. Then I saw that there was no limit to what you could accomplish, and it wasn't that hard. There was a better way, and I was just trying to figure out what it was. And that was the moment for me where it really started to take off.
And Jay, I really like, man, that you, everything that you mentioned, you went out and just started trying shit, right? Like you said, you tried, 9 things, and then the 10th thing might hit, right? I think that's a lot of things with real estate agents, to where, man, that's an entrepreneur mentality, right? Hey, you're trying shit, you're figuring it out, and you're going to look at your results and then make adjustments and go forward. I feel like in real estate, and you talk to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of agents, tell me if I'm wrong. Real estate, I feel like, is disguised as a job, right? Like you're an employee, you have this managing broker who is seemingly like your boss, and there's such a low barrier of entry that once people get their license, what they don't realize is like, oh shit, I'm an entrepreneur now, but they're still thinking like an employee, and they're waiting for someone to tell them what to do. What's your experience with that with agents, man?
It's amazing that's still today that most of the brokerages out there, like when you join, they ain't got a plan for you. They don't have, it's very much you have to figure it out for yourself. Nobody's going to call you at home, make sure you're getting out of bed. Nobody's going to make sure you're at the sales meeting on Tuesdays. Nobody's going to give you a plan and hold you accountable and make sure you send the end of day report. You know what I'm saying? Like if you've never been on your own, truly, have to do it yourself, then it's really, I think, challenging. For me, I put in so much work in it that I became calloused and kind of pissed off. Like why the hell isn't somebody teaching all this shit when you get started? Like, why did it have to be so hard? And I had a kid at a young age. And so like, I remember leaving birthday parties, and I remember leaving, missing events and things of that nature because of this business. And so I just kind of have a little chip on my shoulder about it. And so that's kind of what led me into coaching. I was like, man, I mean, I figured it out, but most people are going to give up long before that. And so, you're kind of on your own. There's not unless you're aligned with the right organization, which, I mean, we understand it, but like, if I've got a vested interest in your success, you're going to be successful. If you have a chance to be successful at all, I'm going to do my best to make sure I help you. If you do the work, you're going to be successful. But that's without that financial alignment, then you're just going to have to have a lot of willpower.
So like so ideally, man, it's like, so what you're saying is you want people to be able to, maybe like they still got to do the work, of course, right? Because you can't physically hit the hammer for them. But essentially, you're trying to show them, hey, these are the 9 things that didn't work. This is the thing that did. Do the work here instead of just spinning your wheels over here. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. So this is actually, that's a great point. And so like, I didn't know, like when somebody would ask me, when I was, doing maybe like 200 or 300 deals a year, which I was still quite successful, by the terms of what most people would say is success in real estate. And when somebody would ask me what I had done, I mean, I could look back and be like, I don't know how the hell I got here. Like I did so many things. I don't even know what the hell I did first and what worked and what for sure, what was, you don't really know. And then I'll never forget, Mike Reese called, and we ran into each other at Lake Texoma. And at the time I had just bought a 35-foot fountain boat. Like boats are my thing. Like that was the first thing. As soon as I had $1 in my account, like I was going to buy a boat. And so I bought this, big ass boat, which is bust out another 1,000. That's nothing truer than that about boats. But this particular big boat, he saw me at the lake and he's like, that's Jay Kinder. I know that guy. We knew each other from going to college together, one course. I think he said I would come in every time. And after roll call, I would leave the class. I don't remember. It was like music appreciation or something. But so Mike's like, dude, man, what do you do now? And he was managing Bally's, and they called him the turnaround kid. They would put him in the store that was the worst, and he would sell it back to the top. So he was the closer. He was a salesman. And so he had the gift of, if you got sales skills, which any skill can be learned, but he had the work ethic. But he said, hey man, what did you do first? And I was like, he said, what should I do first? Not what did I do first? I didn't know what I did first. And what I did first didn't work anyway. Right. So like he would literally call me every day. And he had it before he had his license. He had the same website I had that was generating 300 leads a month. right? Like right out of the gate, he had the right tools, right? And so that was a huge deal. I was like, dude, this is going to be easier for you, bro. Like you have to give me how much shit I had to buy to figure out that this is the best website. Like all of the, and how many flying around the country to this event, at that event, talk to these agents, these people use this tool, you know, like all that kind of stuff just saying out there readily available. And if they're in your traditional brick and mortar office, ain't nobody telling you what's best and what's not. You're the competition. So like he comes out of the gate, just kills it. And his third year, he did $1 million in GCI, but he called me every step along the way. Hey man, should I hire some? I'm thinking about hiring. No, don't make that hire first. Make this hire first.
Yep.
Hey, this is what I'm going to do next. No. That shit don't work. Don't do that. That's not going to work. Do it this way or do that or whatever. And so he was able to not make the mistakes, or at least not make as many of the mistakes. And, you know, you point him in the right direction. You know, there's so many things you can focus on and do in real estate. You do the right things in the wrong order, you still don't get there, right? Or if you do the right things in the right order, you get there way faster. Right. And so like after he got to that, you know, that million, he did $1,245,000. I couldn't believe it in his third year. And so from that point on, we were like, man, this ain't, if a couple of knuckleheads like us could figure this out, we could probably help a lot of people, you know, and that started to become, the passion was just around helping people. And that's really what it boils down to is it's understanding what is the framework of how you make decisions in your business. Right. And so once you understand the framework, and then a good mentor is somebody who knows what are all the ways to do something, and then what's the best way. Right. Many times, like you don't even know what all the ways are. You could go sell, you know, another house this month, but when you know all the ways, and then you figure out, well, what's the best way, what's going to be the easiest way, what's going to be the least amount of resistance. You know, you could pick, you know, somebody sells you a short sale course, and you go get short sale leads, and you don't realize that your first closing is going to be a year from now, and you have $1,000 a month investment. That's a $12,000 investment before you ever get a return. Yep. That's not where you start. Right. And so those are the types of mistakes people tend to make, because they don't have a good framework for how they evaluate all the ways, or they don't have a good mentor or coach that can help them to understand a framework, to make decisions, and then help them with making the right ones. It's the practitionership. It's like, hey, you've got to understand contracts. You've got to understand systems and processes. You've got to understand the process of what a buy looks like, and what a sell looks like, and what a short sale looks like, and what a pre-foreclosure sale looks like. You have to be. And that's where I get super romantic. It's like everything we're talking about is fucking baller. But then I go to, hey, I bet Reese was fucking proficient at speaking to clients though, right? Like, let's not negate the fact that, hey, he's a proficient fucking realtor, right? And I think everyone nowadays, you know, because, man, how many years have you been in real estate? 25.
25?
Yep.
Fucking old man. Grand old man in real estate. But, you know, it's not that long, but it's just now starting to change as far as YouTube and some different things, which is awesome, right? Like, man, I'm in my fourth year of real estate, right? And like our YouTube channel did, you know, just above $2 million in commissions by itself. Yeah. You know, and hey, that's cool. That is the YouTube is the easy. It's not the easiest. It's maybe one of the hardest, but it is the place where there's the most opportunity. I see. There's a land grab right now. If you're good and if you get around the right people, and like our systems and processes behind just what you see on camera on YouTube, and the research and development, and how much him and I are involved, and what the titles are, where are people falling off where they're watching, how can we get them to watch longer? Should we change the title 2 weeks later to get more views? Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Oh, yeah. Yep. But at the end of the day, when people are talking about like our conversion, it's like, hey, look, man, we're really fucking good at understanding client needs and managing emotions and the actual practitionership of the craft. Because if we're out trying to get attention, but we're this empty well, man, it's really hard to convert. And like, you see it a lot because people want to put the cart before the horse, and they want this brand and these things. And it's like, hey, Jay Kinder doing for sale by owners and all this grunt work and all of this time he took learning his practitionership, by the time he ends up on radio and then radio blows up for him, he's prepared for strangers calling him because he's capable of creating that relationship through proficiency, right? Like a lot of times if people know you, they'll let you sell their house or buy their house and okay, throw you a little favor. But when you start working with a big, broad network where it's not people you know, we don't know anybody from our YouTube channel. Right. That relationship is being built off of professionalism and proficiency, man. Right. But then from there, we start getting referrals from them, and they're all in this private Facebook group. So all of these people that are moving to Colorado that close with us, we put them into a private Facebook group with other people just like them, and moms start talking to each other and getting coffee together. And that's a whole other fucking podcast on on retention. Yeah. Yeah. But if we're not proficient and consistent with actually getting the fucking deal done, what does it matter? It just, none of it matters. Right. And like, and it's starting to make that shift. So just like you were shifting, you were doing some radio and things like, hey, now social media, YouTube, things are popping off. But fundamentally for you, when it comes to relationships or certain things, as far as like how you develop agents, what is still, and I don't mean like radio ads or newspaper ads. I mean like skill sets or value adds or core values in a realtor. What is still true today, regardless of how romantic or how fancy or different platforms that are being created for you, for realtors? What are still like those core values you feel that need to be consistent?
Yeah, I mean, it's, Jay Abraham calls it the strategy of preeminence. And it's really, it's just adding, I mean, it's from my shirt. I think you can't see it in black on black, but it says add value. Right. And so like I learned this a long time ago, and you just focus on adding value to people's lives in every possible scenario and just continue to do that over and over and over and over again. Man, everything seems to work out, Yeah. And so like that, it starts like you got to genuinely want to help people and solve their problems and understand their problems before anything else. And that's the foundation of what you're doing. You have to be a trusted advisor. You have to be an expert. You have to know the marketplace. You have to know the best vendors. You have to be the best at what you do, period. And the funny thing was I didn't necessarily know that, but because I didn't have a whole lot of people to work with early on, and because I was young and I looked young, I had to somehow come across as half-assed intelligent. And so I just did a lot of market research kind of stuff and try to understand, like when I walk in the bank and David Madigan, the president, says, hey, how's the market? I'd be like, hey, there's 984 houses on the market. That's down 4% from last year. I knew some numbers and stuff that sounded sounded smart enough that people were like, hey man, this guy knows what he's talking about. And so, you can't skip the step of becoming the actual expert, and you can't do this business without genuinely and authentically caring about people. Like right. That's fundamentally it's impossible. And if you do that and everything else you come across, and whatever it is, marketing and radio, I came across that way. If it's in print, you can't really tell, but when I'm face to face with people, that comes across. And if you don't have that emotional intelligence, this game is very difficult to play.
And it's acquired through reps, man. Like you got to take your punches, you got to take your reps. And I know now you've probably been non-transactional per se, right, for a long time, and you've got a huge network. And now your new client are agents, right? And helping agents build their brand, build their business, being more proficient with the transaction, or, guys like myself and Eli, where, we fucking crush that. And we've got systems and processes. And hey, now we're diving into 10xing agent attraction and throwing events and things that, and things of what that looks like. So you had like what I would call like your infantry level grind when you were doing deals, right? And just getting your business going. Right. What's your business like now? Like what does that grit and that grind look like at your level, right? Because most people think, hey, you get to that level and it's just chill, drinking fucking Mai Tais, right? Like finger popping your asshole, whatever, right? And it's like, well, I'm sure there's a grind and there's a level of retention and pouring in and influencing agents within your entire network to allow them to continue to leveling themselves up, right? Like you're now the guy that's kind of hit the top of the mountain, but you're helping everybody, like you're putting your hand out, helping everybody else get to the top as well. So I'm sure there's things you've adapted to. I'm sure there's new lessons that you've learned. I'm sure there's still a grind and some grit and some tenacity at that level that's usually described at the out hustling, doing deals. But there's got to be something similar at the level to where you're at now. And like, what does that look like?
And an add on to that question, add on to that real quick, Jay. The transition piece too. Oh yeah. Coming from, because I'm sure, and this is kind of where we're at, man. So it's a selfish question for Eli, because we're at
on top of my question.
Exactly. So
hey, he's been disrespecting me all day.
We're at that phase where, man, we're 1 foot over here with clients, we're 1 foot over here with agents, and just hustling super hard in both. So man, as part of Will's question, just that transition, I'm sure there's a period where you guys are doing both as well.
Yeah. I'll answer the transition one second. The thing this might be surprising, but I'll tell you that, like, I've always had my back against the wall, and I kind of like it. Right. Like I kind of like it when the pressure's on, and when the pressure's on, I'll perform, you know what I'm saying? But I like that pressure. I've never been in a place where the money compounds and compounds and compounds and just compound. I can't even invest it fast enough. And I mean, it sounds like a stupid problem to have, but I will tell you, it fucks with your head because I used to, wherever I pointed my attention, I could move the needle in every business I've ever been a part of. Right now, I can't see the needle move when I point my effort into it. And so that was a new thing to get used to. And so I had to dig to find like, what's that? What is it? What am I doing? What am I doing that matters? What am I doing that really matters? And it's, you know, we got it now. It's like 100, I got 100 people I'm making a millionaires. I'm having 100 people I'm helping be millionaires now. And I'm not doing a transaction. I used to do that. I can help anybody sell more houses. You want to sell more houses? I can help you sell more houses. But I'm looking for those people that want to become a millionaire in passive income. And that's, and you know, first you help the people swim into the boat, and now then it's like, okay, who else? You're looking for the people that have the ability to, and they would do it, but they just need your leadership, and they need your help to do it.
So it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where it's like, even him at the level that we're at, it's like you start seeing who's separating himself, you know, from the pack, and who's like for us, we're a couple lines down in your downline, right? But like, hey,
yep.
These dudes are making over $2 million in commissions on their YouTube channel. They're crushing deals, or they're getting, you know, they're starting to like have people flooding into their downline. Like, hey, there's more there. Like, hey, Will and Eli could be on the docket for Jay Kinder, helping those guys make $1 million of passive income. And then what's next? What's next? And
right.
So you're just being very intentional with who gets your time and your influence, because you want to give that football to someone who's going to fucking run it all the way.
Yeah, you got the leverage. Yeah, this is a huge piece. Now I didn't know what this was going to be like necessarily, and it makes sense. It's leadership 101. Like you need if you've got somebody that's an up and coming leader. We call them soldiers, and then captains when you have 100 in your group, and then a general when you get to 1,000. And after once you get to really,
which ones do you call Marines? Which ones do you call Marines?
Yeah, the naming conventions were a collective collaborative idea that we could have done better.
That's just my ego.
Yeah, I got you, dude. But just trying to identify where they're at and what help they need at those stages. Yeah. When you have under 100, you can't financially stop doing what you're doing. You need to, this goes to that transition Eli was asking about. You do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and not, and not, back to the grind. I gotta eat, and so like there's, those are the people that you're kind of trying to help cross that chasm of getting more focused on the leadership and leading others, right? So that they can help those people get financially free too. And so, there's a gap. Every person I work with has a gap. We had a gap. So when we joined, I was getting paid for selling coaching out of the coaching unit, the business unit. And we had the brokerage too. I wasn't drawing a check. We get dividends on that one, but this one was where where the money was. And so, I had to decide, when am I going to stop selling that person coaching and sell them on Coming to EXP? And it happened all in one 3-day span where it happened for me. The clarity it happened for me was the answer. I accidentally sent an email out and to all the database, and it was a free coaching call with me. And I sent it, and I left my calendar open for 3 days straight, like literally wide open. So it just filled every day. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I was like, I remember I was driving home and I saw the ding, 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 ding was coming through all these people's scheduling calls. I was like, what did I do? And I was like, oh man. And so I did all these coaching calls, and at the end of every one of them, I was like, man, I didn't want to. I wanted to sell them because I knew that's what I needed to do, was sell them. But I couldn't, because I knew what was better for them. And every one of them, like, what was best for them was them to partner with us at EXP. Like, This is going to solve all your problems. Like, I can help you with every one of those things, but if you were partners with me, you wouldn't even have to pay me. And it became clear, like, oh, this is just a better way. Like, this model solves so many problems in so many different ways that it became very apparent that was a focus. But still, for me, there was a number I needed to get to. For me, it was just $30,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Once I got to $30,000 a month, there was no question that, and it really didn't, it was before, I knew before that, but once I got to $30,000 a month, it was, now that's what I was paying myself. So now I know I'm good. But you have to kind of get clear on what that number is. And if you're not, you'll know when you get to it, because there's a certain point you can look over and like, maybe I just dropped $10,000 in my account this month. Where'd that come from? And it may be insignificant compared to your, $2 million in commissions, but you didn't do anything really for that money. So like, it becomes very clear. Well, if I get 10, I could probably surely get it to 20. If I get it to 20, I get to 40.
But you are doing stuff because you're coaching.
Yeah.
But then they're going to go out and the difference between like coaching alone and then coaching when you're in this model of EXP is, you coach someone. And you get paid for that session, you get paid for that program, but then it stops, right? But when they're within our network, hey, I'm going to coach you, but then you're going to go out and produce, and I'm getting paid on your production. And then you're going to master that. And then that same person is now ready for their own agent attraction.
Yep.
And we get to train them on that. And what I love, man, is like we come from the traditional model over at Berkshire and top 1%, top 0.5% in the world for production, right? Cool. But we started having agents on our team. We coached them so well, they were now ready for the next level. They were now ready to be a team leader. But they can't be a team leader on our team. They would have to leave our team to do something like that. But here with where we're at, it's like, hey, we can coach you to be subject matter experts and practitioners at the infantry level to do and crush deals and help build your brand. But then when you master that and you're ready for your own agent attraction and different levels of proficiency and branding and scaling, you never have to leave us. We can just keep pouring into you. I never have to stop being your daddy, right? Like I can just pour in, and then they also get to pour into people below them who are below them, who are below them. And they also get everyone in that upline. And it's, man, it is like you say, it's just, dude, it's just the right move. Like you never have to keep coming back and asking these things.
Anybody who has any business experience whatsoever that sees the model and understands like what this is, it's the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. I mean, I hated asking for credit cards, but I knew that they needed to have skin in the game to a certain degree for one thing. And I knew that the value was there, but it's way cooler to not have to ask somebody for money and be like, hey man, I'm just going to help you today. You know, like that feels good. Like that for me on a daily basis, I get to help people and I don't have to charge them anything. And that's a pretty cool thing to be able to do for a living. And so, and I'm only going to be successful if I help you be successful. Meaning, I'm going to get paid only when you are successful.
You could be an asshole, and the model would still work. Like you could be
Except
I
don't recruit assholes.
No, for sure, I know what you mean. But like,
you know what I'm saying?
But literally, it's like the way that the model is there. It's encouraging, and it makes the people above you want to pour into you and help you become successful with doing deals and with just building your influence. And no, man, we love it, dude. It is interesting to hear when you talk about getting to your first 100. Is that like in your front line or just total, like 100 total?
In the so we're at 10,000 between me, Mike, and Al. That's basically grabs another level below my 7th, and then Al's front line. So like Mike has almost 2,000 in his what would be my 8th level. So that's how I have 8,000. I just crossed 8,000 day before yesterday. So it's collectively it's a little over 10,000, and that's a lot. But all the way up to this this year, really, I was helping anybody, any level, didn't matter where you were at. If you were looking for help, I was doing calls with them, and I feel like those conversations, no different than if somebody's listening to this, the ahas are probably starting to pop off. I can help them with where you're at, where you're trying to go, and I can unravel what we need to do to help them. And once they believe that I can help them, then the opportunity for them to come over, the financial almost always makes sense, right? You're almost always better off, no matter where you're at in production, being a DXP. Most people end up getting paid to be DXP. You're getting paid to be DXP. I'm getting paid to be DXP. We ain't paying them anything. And so people, once they realize, hey man, I think they can actually help me solve my problem, save me some money too, then it's a lot easier for them to make that decision. And so that's, and I do that with anybody and everybody, and no matter where they're at, it doesn't matter. There's half the time they're probably not even in my revenue share group at all. But, in doing that, I feel like at the end of those days, I feel like, man, I made a difference today. Like there's probably 10 people going to join now that probably maybe would have, but probably wouldn't have, some of them definitely wouldn't have. And some days I felt like every one of them, I was the difference maker. And so that like, but then again, like my best examples of from a leadership standpoint and from a duplicatable process and helping others do the same was, had this great dude, Dan Hillsman, who was, kind of was going to do agent attraction, but he wasn't even coming over for that. He was just like, man, I'm going to save money. I'm going to get y'all going to help me sell more houses. That's why I'm doing it. He ended up being very coachable and the most consistent person that I've had. And he did 4 or 5 million in production, been in business 20 years, real soft spoken, nice guy. You wouldn't consider him like a recruiter. And he followed the process, put people on 3-way calls, and it got to a point where, he knows exactly what I'm going to say every time. And so he could just do the 3-way calls for his team. And he's got 3 or 4 people. I did 150 3-way calls with Dan Hillsman and with his 3 key people that were focused somewhat on agent attraction. All 4 of those people now are out of production. Dan will hit 1,000 agents here in the next couple months. These other agents are at 500 or more. They're making more money than they've ever made, passive income, more than $250,000 a year last year. And they never made that much money in their life. And so, but that was the process, and now they're doing 3-way calls for their teams. Right. And that's And it's just a matter of, it's just psychology, something you're going to instantly resist because I'm selling, right? Nobody likes to be sold. So you create resistance when you're trying to sell EXP. Man, I'm just selling, hey man, I know a guy that can help you. The dude used to crush it, sold 500 plus homes a year. If you can sell that conversation, let me do the selling now, because now they're sold on, well, I want to hear what this guy's to say. This sounds pretty awesome. And now I can show you how I'm going to help you. Right. And so that's really just the psychology behind that is better than just trying to sell people on EXP. And that's what a lot of people get confused about. It's like, I don't like EXP. I don't want to recruit, because the way they're being recruited is, I say it's like Fight Club. The first rule about Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. Right. But don't talk about EXP. This ain't about EXP. This is about, if we can help you go from here to here, would you be open to what that might look like? And that's really what agent attraction is. But
it is.
But
it's
a lot
relationships.
of people get that confused.
But being able to say what you just said, hey, if we could get you from here to here, would you want to come over? You don't get to say that unless you're a great practitioner at whatever your subject matter expertise is.
Facts.
If you can't help them do that, then you don't get to say that. So all you fall back on is trying to preach a brand or throw something else that indirectly blinds them, or what you think blinds them to your inadequacy. So, so being proficient is super big.
Question, Jay. So, when you mentioned those people doing like the three-way calls with you and stuff, are they expected to be able to provide that person? Like, are they telling that person, oh, I can get you from here to here? Or is it simply just hey, you got to talk to this guy?
Yeah. So that's edifying someone else, making someone else levitate, that's Mike Reese was good at this, man. Like anywhere we go, he would sell me and make me levitate versus trying to sell how great he is and stuff. And as a partnership, it always feels good to have someone that can help, that can edify you. And then people are paying attention, they get more respect. Yep. So I've seen the role of edification and how it works in a lot of different scenarios. But that's really what it is. And at the end of the day, you don't have to be able to help someone with every aspect of how to solve their problems. But in this environment, you do know that how you need to know how we're going to help them. Right. And so, you know a guy, that's all you need to know. And if you just get on there and just shut up and let me do the talking, you'll learn the process. It's not that hard. And then we give them all the tools, right? Like you guys give them all the tools, how they're going to get help, but it's not necessarily that they're going to be the one that's holding them, because in many cases, their production isn't at the level that person's production is at. And if you're trying to sell that, they ain't buying that. Right. So you have to leverage the power of the group. And, I think edifying anyone, some leader in your organization is the way to do that the best way. And until you get to a point where you can do it. And again, the system isn't, you have to be able to help that person go from their A to B. You just have to know what the process is that they're going to plug into. That's
even if you're strong. Yeah. I feel like Eli and I are extremely strong at our YouTube. We're extremely strong at practitionership with developing people and cranking deals. We're extremely proficient at doing the deals. So I would say him and I are extremely confident in like, hey, if there was no one above us, I would still trust myself with the people that were recruiting or the agent attraction, right? But with that being said, what I'm getting at is even if you're an extremely strong person, you're limiting yourself if you're not applying the team. As in, Will and Eli are really good at this. But hey, if you're looking at diving into leads or radio or doing certain things with your brand, and that's not necessarily my lane, but I'm familiar with my upline and I know who can speak to that lane to help them, great. Because, you're the most valuable player in the NFL. But if you don't have any receivers to throw to, it would not matter. So even as confident as Eli and I are, having the Jay Kinders of our upline that are great at what they do, that are great at explaining certain things, or just whatever their expertise is, hey, man, have that available, because it also gives that person that's coming over, it gives them the feeling and the impression of, hey, man, you're coming into a team. Yep. You're coming into a conglomerate of resources that are going to help you scale. It's not just Will, because, well, what if Will gets busy? I don't want to call him, or, man. No. Hey, there's an entire conglomerate of just awesome dudes that are above me that are also going to be helping with A, B, and C in addition to what I'm helping you with, which I feel like that's the best part of it. You still got to be great at what you do, but don't let being great at what you do limit you from exposing people to your entire network.
Right. 100%. Yeah, that's it.
So moving forward, man, unless you got a question on that, but like, man, what's your, so obviously you guys have like 10,000 people in your network, right? Will and Eli, we're super cute. We get some of your one-on-one time, hopefully, right? Like we'll harass you, but how, like, what does your regiment look like as far as like for all 10,000 people? how do they get Jay and Michael Reese? Do they go to in-person events? Are you doing private groups once a week, once a month? What does your structure look like that lets you get to the masses in addition to your time with other heavy hitters?
Great question.
Great question. So it's starting to segment a little bit. And so for the last 4 years, I've only been here 4 years. So I guess up until this point, the things that have started to change a little bit in terms of where I invest my time. I would say there was probably very few people that you could find that would say I reached out to Jay and I didn't hear back from him. Like that. It probably, I mean, I would have to debate, man. Like it would have had to have been one of those just random days that I missed something. But so that felt good. You know, they got to the point like, okay, that ain't working no more. Like I can't.
I think the only time you respond is like the day after Dallas loses a playoff game. You're not answering fucking phone, right?
Right.
And tomorrow when I call you after all these Dallas jokes, you're not responding to me.
No. I try to respond to everybody. I'll tell you what I don't respond to. Questions that people can find real easily, and they try to use me as the hey. It's just little things like, you can go in a workplace and get that answer in 10 seconds. I'm not even going to bother with a response to it. And so I train them in that way, not to do that because I don't respond to those types of questions. But outside of that, I try to help everybody. And usually within a day, definitely within 2 days, I can have a time that I can be on a call with somebody. Right. And so what was happening that I could no longer do was I just left my calendar open for anybody to get into it. And I would get a lot of people that were asking the same things over and over. And sometimes it would be like 7 in a row. I'm like, this is a problem. If you get 7 of the same questions in a row, there's a problem. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't because there wasn't a system for it, because we did build a system for it. People just weren't using the system. And so like, it was the same people every 6 months saying, I want to do agent attraction. And I would tell them the same shit I told them the last time, and they didn't do anything. Just like you were talking earlier, like with, when you're working with people, you want to work with the ones that go do shit. And then they're up a level here when you see them again and they got a new problem, right? You're like, oh, this person's getting somewhere. And so I'll pour into those people because between the whistles, they're growing, right? And like, you're only growing when I'm on a call with you, I can't mess with you no more. Like you got to grow in between those calls.
And you're not growing when you're on that call. Because if you go do nothing with it, like every time you talk on that call, it's hypothetical. It's here's what you could be doing and here's what that could look like. But unless you go apply it, there are no actual thing. Like if you and I keep talking football, you're a football coach, I keep talking about coming and playing quarterback for you. It's not, until I'm on your team throwing the football and you and I are talking about plays that are working, plays are not that working. Hey man, no, you don't think that play works. It does, but you're not looking at that receiver to the left because you keep throwing to the check down in the flat because you're fucking scared to be in the pocket. I need you doing this.
Yep.
Those on the field conversations are where you're growing. Me coming and talking to you once a month about playing for your football team, at some point it's a waste of time.
Right. So it just, and again, the solution is there. We built agentattractiontraining.com. I would end every call, or I would start every call. They're 20-minute calls. And in the language, in the setting, the call was very poignant about don't waste my damn time. Mm-hmm. Have your questions ready. You're calling me. This was a huge deal, man. You're calling me. I'm not calling you. You're calling me, my cell phone. And so I didn't have to jump into a Zoom room or do none of that stuff. Like I was boom. And so anywhere I'm at, I could stay on the fly, stay light and do things and be flexible with where I was at. And I could still take a phone call and it didn't feel heavy to me. Right. And so it was 20-minute calls. People were very respectful of my time. Rarely did people not show up. And so like, that was by design, you know what I'm saying? And so I was pretty efficient. I felt like as efficient as I could be with as many people as we have. But today I'm doing it manually until I find a better way. But I've identified my leaders. I've identified the top 100. I've had them identify their top up and comers. And now I'm pouring into those people and I'm putting them in a separate group and I'm working them separately and I'm giving them a separate calendar link. And I'm being very intentional about who I'm working because I'm trying to help build my next millionaire, right? Like I'm going to get, this is the next one that's going to go to 1,000 and I'm focusing on where they're at in my organization more than I ever have. So like, it doesn't make, I'll help anybody. You can get my calendar. I'll give you everything I got. There's nothing that's a secret. I'll help everybody win. We all win if we win together at this company anyway. And so it ain't like that. But if I'm going to be strategic, which I am, I understand the impact that 31% of my group is in my 7th level. So for every person I'm working at that's on my 2nd tier, I'm losing 31% of those agents that they get. 1,000, I'd lose 310 agents potentially, based on the numbers. And so that's a significant, change in my strategy. If I'm working with somebody on my 6th level and they take a lot of my time, and I'm working with their key people, and those people are on my 5th, 6th, and 7th, 8th levels, I'm with my time about who I'm choosing to lead, at the same time trying to stay abundant and just help everybody.
But what's awesome is if you've got somebody in your 7th and you're helping them, but the second it's getting to level 8 or not, or it's getting out of your actual network. But hey, those people that are out of your network can still come to events that you're going to be at 4 or 5 times a year that have 5,000 agents.
We're doing group call. We're doing all the group call stuff. There's 5 days a week. There's something going on that we're doing. You know what I'm saying? They get access to everything. They just ain't getting that. They're not getting the, there's some people that are going to be leaders that, you don't have to do a whole lot and they're going to keep going. Right. And who those people are in your org. And then there's people that, you better help them, because otherwise they might just end up out there going and selling some more houses and not doing what they should be doing and staying committed and helping lead their leaders. And, so you kind of want to help those people and hey, I'm going to make sure I get you. I'm going to lead you the way you should be leading them. Right. And so that's that's where I'm at in my, in the structure of how I'm doing things now. But that's new for me. This is just kind of I'm reinvigorated to try to figure out how can I build systems to recruit because I'm not recruiting for me anymore. Right. I was, I got to make sure I'm above 40. That was 4 years of that. Yeah. Me, Mike, and Al. So I'm not, now it's who's a good strategic leader I could align with that I could I could point this gun at and help fill them up. You know what I'm saying? And so just starting to think a little bit more about how to really grow. And that starts with your best leaders, period. Because otherwise it flows all back up to you and it becomes heavy again. And so you got to have,
and you're not at scale. If you're having to do all of it, you're not at scale anymore, because it's on you to have to do everything versus that whole decentralized command, right? And delegating that ability and the skill sets and the tools to go out and let them lead their squads, right? It's like when you talk about generals and stuff, it's chain of command, man. A battalion commander who's in charge of 500 Marines is not making 500 decisions. He's making decisions with his top leaders, who then have their leaders below them, who have their leaders below them, and skill sets and commander's intent is huge, right? I'd be super curious to hear about what your commander's intent, but before we go on deployment, or even before augments, when we're getting ready to go out into theater, right, into the bad shit, the commander will come out with what's called a commander's intent. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing. Here's exactly why we're doing, and here's the nature we're going to go about it, right? And so for example, one of the bigger commander's intent that people might know is General Mattis, right, from the Marine Corps. And one of his theses is, and there was more detail to it, but the famous slogan was, no better friend, no worse enemy, right? This is a war on terror. There are good people in these countries that need our help. And if they need our help and resources, Marines will be no better friend. And if you're fucking around, no worse enemy. And then here's what that looks like. But that commander's intent is super because it bled into every single Marine that was going over there, as far as here's who we are. Here's what we're all about. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. They needed to give us that bird's eye view goal. Here's what we are trying to accomplish. Here's who's in charge and which units are going where to accomplish that, right? And then here's the nature and how we're going to do it, as far as our demeanor, our tenacity, right? And you have security patrols, assault patrols, overwatch patrols. Different squads had different responsibilities. Not everybody was just kicking indoors all at the same time. You had satellite patrols, but that commander's intent from the top down is what was huge, because it keeps everybody in line with, okay, so Jay Kinder, Mike, okay, you guys are at the top of your top, right? But that commander's intent that bleeds down, it's not only, hey, here's skill sets, here's some tools, here's some logistical ways of doing something, here's, the phone calls that you're going to do, but the commander's intent is it's bigger than those. It's here's our intention and why we're all doing this in the first place. If that makes sense, right? And sorry for the phone ringing, Jay. That's my phone. Thanks, Eli.
No
man, so it'd be curious, man. Is there something that and I could be?
Yeah, dude. Man, I just did this today, man. I brought the entire organization. So, when I say organization, we had Kinder Stasic and a handful of independent contractors. We got somebody helping with onboarding. We got somebody that does that does some outbound and some recruiting and stuff like that. And some logistics type stuff and whatnot, but not a lot of people, right? Like it's a pretty small, tight little org that doesn't have a lot of, resources and people in it. And so then we had, our coaching and training organization, NAEA which has some badasses, some really good quality people. And we hadn't really got it all brought together in alignment completely. And it was just operating kind of, almost kind of on maintenance mode. And so I hadn't been really I wasn't leading that operation. So it all came together and I had to get clear on what the hell we're doing, why we're doing it, why it mattered, and how we were going to go do it. And so, I literally just gave this talk this morning and it was, there's some discussion and some collaboration around it because there's some, who can we help? What is the right problem to solve? Right. And so for us, it was, there's a gap in the agent, the brand new agent that joins the EXP. If they join under a certain group that doesn't have good systems and leadership in place, then they're not going to have the same experiences if they join under you guys in Denver, right? Like it can be night and day difference, right? And so like that's what we feel like we have to create and find the right leaders that are going to co-create that experience. And then now we're going to recruit those types of agents for you, and we're going to help you. And that's one of the ways that we're going to now. And which agents are we? Like we got into a big debate about what agent that we're what's the ICP, what is the ideal client profile, and we started at 0 to 30 transactions was the ideal. Like we could really solve problems for that agent, and there's a lot of debate about that 0, right? Like brand new agent, big marketplace. I don't know if I can't help them all. Right. And so like, there was all this discussion around what is it brand new or is it hungry, humble, smart? Like that's, we're only looking for people that want to grow, but how do you know? Cause you don't know, you think you know sometimes, but you don't know. So like, how do you, so for me, like, hey, listen, we're going to help everybody that wants our help. And we're going to do everything we can to make that person successful, but we're not going to drag dead bodies. And so like there is a point at which we're going to stop pouring into people that don't want our help.
And that's the right answer.
Right. It is the right.
Dude, you're smart.
Took a little while to get there, right?
Because like the zeros, it's like, oh yeah, but the 0. Yeah. But that means like they could be great. They could be not great. There's no data. So, hey, pour into everybody and then allow the data, allow the response, allow the reaction of you watering the plant be the decision maker. Don't try to make the decision ahead of time, right? And this is where like when people talk about even like normal companies, man, like don't be so stringent on the hiring process. It's the firing process you got to get fucking better at. You keep talking this guy up and he's going to be the killer. And then when he's not, you keep pouring into him because your word or your ego's on the line because you said he was going to be awesome, but then he's not awesome. And then you drag him around for too much longer and you fire him a year longer than it should have taken. And we're not firing anybody here. Everyone's agents, but it's like, hey, water those plants and see what grows and assess and make your decision off of real fucking data, not a hypothetical conversation when we just don't know what we don't know. Right. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, cool. You kind of alluded to this earlier in the conversation, but it's, we want it worse sometimes than they want it for themselves. And we can see that they could do it and they could have it and they just don't want it. And it's hard because, you want to see what you see it in them, right? Like, they could do it. It's just, and you're just trying to find a way to inspire them and they just don't have it. And that's really hard for me. It always has been. But yeah, you have to be clear. You have to have agreements up front and it starts there, like agreements, not expectations. And here's what we're going to do. And then we can talk about why you didn't do what you said you were going to do. But if it's expectation, now it's just, me thinking you should have done something that you may not even known you were supposed to do.
Your head coach for Alabama football. I was watching him not too long ago and he talks about having, when he talks to players or other coaches and it's, when he's sitting down and he's talking to that said person, he says, we're having a conversation with your actions, not your words. So when you're coming in here and you have a problem or you're not a starter or whatever it may be, we got to be having a conversation about actions, because if you're not doing what you should be doing or you could be doing more to have something, the words you're going to speak about discomfort or I need this, it's irrelevant to action-based, right? And he's got his open door policy. But if someone has an open door policy in conjunction with you knowing if you walk in there, we're having a conversation with your actions, not your words, you are 10 times more reluctant to walk in that door knowing you could be doing more. And if you're prepared to walk in there, you've got to make sure you've dotted your I's and you've crossed your T's, and it's those agreements. Hey, we've agreed, like you're a part of this team. Here's our creed. to this team, and here's what it takes, and it's not for everyone. And so if you're going to walk in here, my door is open, but you might get the biggest smack on your fanny if you're not prepared for that, and like super big deals, man. And
that's great. I love that.
And it's good because it keeps everyone accountable, and it just makes them pause before they call your phone. It makes them pause before they walk into your office. It literally creates a filter for themselves to be checking themselves, as they should, because if they're focused more on their actions, it's like, man, I could be doing these two things, because I know if I get on there and I'm talking to Jay, but then he goes into the free course he gave me and sees that I haven't watched but 6 minutes of the 6 hours, the conversation stops.
Right.
And it's, hey, finish this, go apply all of that, and then if we're still having a problem with that specific thing that then call me. And you probably won't be calling me about that. And if I have to tell you that kind of thing again, I'm going to get really reluctant to even have an open door policy for you. Like, you're going to burn your resource if you're abusing it.
Yes, man. It reminds me of a quick story. So we had this mentorship with Clayton Mask and the leadership team at Infusionsoft. Now it's called Keep. They built that thing to like $1 billion valuation. We kind of got into this mastermind early, so we kind of got to watch the growing pains of building this huge organization with 1,000 employees. And he talked about, the difference in having growers and tools. And some people are growers and they're going to grow, and other people are tools. They're good for the job, doing whatever, but they're never going to lead people. And you're never going to move them into a role of leading others, because they're not even leading themselves properly. And it was really, he said he made a comment to me one day that, man, it gave me goosebumps. He said, B players are the people you spend time with instead of your family. And I was like, oh man, like,
say that again.
Exactly. B players are the people you spend time with instead of your family. And because A players get the job done 90% of the time, but B players, man, they're not quite A players, and they're not really sometimes growers. And so they do really well at what they do, but you spend a lot of extra time on them. And I like all these people that started flashing through my mind over the years, of people that I poured into after hours, and they never did really get there. And I certainly couldn't have had them leading other people. And so it was a really big get for me. And I remember I had this dude that like, I had end of day reports. I was sending him out on listing appointments, and I was trying to make sure he was following our process to the T. And we were spending all the money, and we were sending him out all these appointments. I said, I want to end of day report every day. We're going to meet every morning. We're going to book in the day, and we're going to iterate fast, and we're going to learn, and we're going to make changes, and we're going to get there faster. And so I remember I gave him a book to read, and I wrote in the back of this book, like about 3/4 away, when you get to this part of the book, call me. And about 6 years later, it didn't work for me no more. About 6 years later, and this was like 3 months ago, he called me. He took a picture and sent it to me. He said he didn't even know what I was doing. Yeah. I knew he didn't read the book. Yeah, but I knew he wasn't going to read the book, so I put it in there. And but it was just one of those things. Like, man, this guy is so talented, but he doesn't execute, right? Like, what here's your biggest problem. Now, the funniest thing was the book I gave him was No BS Time Management by Dan Kennedy, which his problem was time management. And he's just, flying all over the place and doing things, and he wasn't being disciplined about his time. Apparently that problem came up again in his life, and he went back to that book that Jay gave him 6 years ago to try to solve it finally, right? It got big, problem got big enough, he had to go fix it. And, he actually finished the book. And so, the good news is, he got there eventually, but yeah, I'd say, those are tough decisions, because, this dude was one of the most talented people I've ever worked with. And, but I knew he would never move up in the organization and be a leader. Right. And that's, being able to identify that is a big part of, understanding, how to grow an organization.
And just taking your emotion out of it, because you care for the guy, you love the guy, he's got so much talent. But that's an emotional response, right? And very rarely do our emotions, when they have majority vote, create a good decision. And it's like, man, it's the Jay Cutlers of the world. I don't think anyone argues Jay Cutler's arm. And you can say, hey, he played for the Bears or Broncos or whatever, but like I think undoubtedly there are separation between some amazing ball throwers and Tom Brady. And Tom Brady had a strong arm. Like, I don't want to disrespect his arm, but I don't think we put Tom Brady even in the top 10 of arms, right? Like, I mean, hell, Michael Vick is probably in the top 3 for strongest arm.
Right.
But where are we at? And it's the same thing, man. Like, it's, hey, your ability to execute and get by on talent alone is what's limiting you to growth and to leadership, because you keep being here. And something that Eli and I talk about a lot, man, I want to get your opinion on this, and we'll let you go, because I know we're just over an hour. People don't change until it's too painful not to. Okay, so whether that's you're broke and you've got $30 in your account and a baby on the way, or your ambition and you know where you want to be, and it's too painful to stay where you're at because of how high your ambition wants to go. You know, and something that we had in the Marine Corps, man, during my generation, it was called training scared. Guys that were getting in the Marine Corps for my generation, it was post 9/11, right? You're joining the Marine Corps, you go into the Marine Corps infantry. That's a very unique set of little dudes there because they're coming in after 9/11 happened. They're joining the Marine Corps and they're deciding to go to the infantry. You've signed that check. You're going. I mean, that's where you're going to the fight. And this one element that we had that I noticed that we're absent of sometimes is leadership. And we get very romanticized as far as like, you know, being a squad leader, you know, platoon commanders in the infantry during that time, or being a part of special operations. It's very romanticized and looked up to, and for good reason. Don't get me wrong, man, because I served with some fucking giants. However, we had a little bit of nitrous on that motor because there was this element of fear when we were doing workups and training prior to deployments. That was in the back of everyone's fucking head. And there were guys asking more questions, running through gun drills more, disassembling and assembling machine guns under pressure even more, staying up at night and training because any little bit of extra that you could get, you would want, because you would hate to not be able to perform. And one of your brothers gets hurt and dies, or you, man, like it was real. Yeah. And the one thing we got to do over here, whether it's real estate or anything else specific to real estate with all of us, is how do we get people to identify their pain points? Not their, and I'm cool with whys. Don't get me wrong, right? Like, what's your why? And we eat hemp and fucking whatever, right? Cute. It's just hard for people to, even if they think they know their why, it's hard to bring pressure out of a why, in my opinion. But if you can get people to identify with their fear or their pain point, people will start changing because, hey, we don't like pain. We don't like the reality of said certain pain. So if Elon and I is ambition is to have 20,000, 10, 15,000 in our network, then sitting here with 65 is extremely painful to me, regardless of income. I know my ambition. I know my leadership set skills, and I know what we're capable of. So not achieving that or any distraction thereof is a very painful point for me. So it's not just about being broke, being fat, getting cheated on and being in a bad relationship. It's even at certain levels of success. And it's hard for people to grasp that, but getting people to identify what pain points does create this training scared or moving through life with that sense of urgency and fear, because not achieving what you want to achieve and settling just to where you're at, identifying with that is huge, right? But it's hard to be a leader. And like what I've noticed from my days in the Marine Corps to here is complacency is a real thing here, because no one's dying. Your business can die, deals can die, your downline can die, but we're not dying, right? So we had the ability to not have to deal with as much complacency in a time of war compared to what we're dealing with now. Like, do you deal with some of that, Jay? And like, how do you navigate through some of that, even for yourself, right? Like, how do you identify with your own pain points? And I guess what I'm getting at for the end of the show is, how are you still approaching every day like it's day $1, even though there's a lot of us out there that think, man, you've won, you're there, right? But for you, maybe you're not, right? So how are you still approaching that? How do you still combat complacency in others and within yourself?
Yeah. So it's, it is definitely a challenge, right? And you know, I love what you're saying, you know, when it comes down to it, having, you know, finding that fear, that pain point. It's just like when meeting with a seller, if they don't have a motivation and something that they won't get to accomplish if they don't sell their house, then, you know, it's real hard to get them to listen to you when on what you need to do to get it to sell for top dollar and make sure they do sell. Now, today's market, that's not a problem, but when a market's normal, you know, normal type of marketplaces, that's a big deal. You know, if I can't find that for you, I have a hard time getting you to do what's right. And so, that's definitely, and I think for me, you know, it's continuously looking for what is it, where is my impact going to be felt the greatest? And I brought a lot of people on, and I owe it to them. And so I feel a sense of urgency to help those people. But it is a challenge. I definitely deal with complacency myself, because some days, you know, I'm doing calls all day long and it's hard to see, like I said, what's moving the needle. I remember when a CEO friend of mine told me that, you know, he was in mortgage business. He was one of the top guys in the world in mortgages and doing loans. And he was in a company, he was a CEO of a $50 million company. And he said, man, I feel like what I do doesn't move the needle. And so I felt that for the last couple of years, But what keeps me going is that every single day I'm having conversations where I'm making an impact. I feel like for me, that's more enjoyable than anything. The money doesn't matter. The money comes in anyways. So like, I don't even, that doesn't even come into the equation anymore. You got to figure out what every day makes a good day for you. Right. And you know, it doesn't feel like, it feels like I'd be letting people down. So I'm using that as my energy to keep me going. Is like, I'm not going to not respond to you. If you send me a text message, I send it right back. You know, if you want to get in my calendar, I'm gonna give you a time today.
Yeah.
Like that for me, that's where I feel like my back's up against the wall to serve people. And that I had to find. It wasn't the easiest transition for me. But
and maybe that's the why. Maybe like when I talk about, you know, pain points, maybe it's almost like because people want to start with whys in the very beginning, right? Like when they're starting their career or whatever. And like, man, it doesn't resonate with me. So maybe why is more of grad school. Maybe as you deal and identify and accomplish and overcome your pain points, you graduate into remember why you did that in the first place. And now your place is more of a why of influencing and not letting people down and pouring into others people's buckets, but you've already gotten past your pain points. But interesting topic, man. But we super love having you on, man. I want to have you on in the future. We talked about maybe doing some events and whatnot. And but man, just a huge value add. And for those that are in real estate that listen to this, if you guys have questions and whatever it may be, like, and you love Jay, well, I might have Jay's cell phone number.
Don't say that.
So come on over and holler at us, and we'd love to have it. But no, man, Jay, we're gonna throw on some of that rap music. Hang on for a quick sec, man, and we'll play an outro, and then we'll get you out of here, brother.
You got it, man.
All righty, day one, $0 out.
I can never take a day off.
Right on, dude. Super appreciate you.